All right, great. So Abhishek, I think we can get started. Obviously, Abhishek does not need an introduction. Everybody's heard of GoodDot and the amazing work they've been doing right from the very start, just building the entire ecosystem, one of the first few companies to focus on the entire change theory that GFI also kind of recommends about price, taste, convenience, and at the same time, really try to innovate to reach the plant-based meat texture, flavors, accounting for the local preferences. There's just so much interesting things that GoodDot has done over the past 3 years through its QSR chain GoodDo. They are into everything. They've been exporting now. There are, I think, QSR outlets in multiple countries outside of India. So just so many insights packed into Abhishek and Abhinav's journey. So we have Abhishek with us today, who primarily focuses on GoodDot, the manufacturing venture where a lot of this production takes place. A lot of these packaged products that you see in the market are, mainly going through Abhishek's main function. So basically what we're looking to do today is, just to repeat for some people who've just joined us, in the first 30 minutes, we're going to quickly cover some of the topics that were shared by you as questions or as key topics in the first through the registration form. And in the last 30 minutes, we're going to take in some live questions. Feel free to switch on your videos throughout the entire meeting. Just, interact with Abhishek better, make this a, kind of an integrated networking experience for the small cohort of top 25 teams. Just to give you some more context, Abhishek, these top 25 teams have reached after 3 months of consuming tons of our resources, taking a bunch of quizzes. So they took the world's first smart protein digital lab, got certified in it, and in the second phase, they submitted proposals in plant-based meat, eggs, dairy, seafood, and plant-based ingredients, these 5 categories. And now in the phase 3, these top 25 teams are basically making detailed 15-page business plans, proposals, pitch decks, all of that. And then obviously 5 of them are going to be selected after a pitch session or a pitch day or demo day. And then, yes, hopefully a lot of them end up starting companies in this sector. So great. Very excited to have you, Abhishek. Thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us. Why don't you start by telling our participants a little bit about your own journey in your own words and what you do, at GoodDot.
Yeah, thanks, Shardul. It's exciting to be here, especially with the youngsters. And you guys at GFI are doing a fantastic job. I think probably outside the US, I don't know any other place in GFI is so active. And in just a short span of time, all credit goes to you, Varun, and everyone, Siddharth, everyone involved, taking it to the next level. The buzz is real, and I think the outcome will also be real. Like, we are in a very exciting time, especially in India. We started out late. That's why my thought process remains the same, that India has got the potential to be the world's largest plant-based alternative market. That is goes in our DNA, right? We are primarily vegetarians who happen to eat meat. Some of us who eat meat, right? So having said that, in terms of our journey, it has been a while. We started working on the project since 2013. So it was, pretty long time back, with the concept on which we started seriously working upon. In 2016, after developing the product, we formed the company, and 2017 was the first commercial launch of our product. And now we are selling all across India. We are manufacturing plant-based meat. We are selling all across India. And we also have a sister company called GoodDot Foods, which is into vegan fast food outlets. So, that's also doing fairly well. And we are continuously trying to, innovate both at the GoodDot level as well as GoodDo level. So there are quite a few interesting, strategy, which will be, disclosed in the coming months, exactly what we are doing. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. And just building on that, I think we can directly go into the questions since we're already 10 minutes into the session. My first question is actually about your target audience, who you're really making these products for. Is it mainly that vegan population in India, vegetarian population in India? Is it the meat eaters? Or, do you believe in a flexitarian concept for the Indian market? At the same time, a lot of your branding is also, vegan. And sometimes we refer people or recommend people from staying away from it and focusing on the plant-based side of things. And again, a lot of that consumer data is now coming up. GFI is doing a lot of work in building some of those data points qualitatively, quantitatively with a lot of partners. But from your own perspectives of just having learned through a lot in this market in 3 years, could you throw some light on that?
Yeah, I think you're right, Shardul. This entire vegan alternative space, it started of course, way back, thousands of years back, when China actually went into plant-based meat or mock meat, so to say. But if you talk about realistically, it was since past 10 odd years that it has tried to become mainstream, primarily from the US, right? And now Europe is also catching up. So therein, the word vegan is a bit of a niche, and somewhere, some people take it as in a negative format because of, some of the vegans being quite vocal in pressing their claim for, rightly so, which we feel. But I would say the answer lies in two aspects. There are two aspects to it. One is a personal journey, and another will be more neutral in a commercial point of view, right? From a personal journey, GoodDot is all about the ethical side of plant-based meat or vegan foods. So this is what drives us. This is what motivates us to wake up daily and work hard at it. And we are doing some of the work which we are not disclosed to the outside world, but we are taking care of those animals and all that. This is what drives us. So that is why we are very clear that we are a vegan company, and it is primarily from an ethics perspective. So that therein goes our perspective, and we have not done much cost benefit analysis on that. So that is our own journey. From a commercial perspective, I would say yes, vegan is a bit of a I would say a scare word in the Western world, not so in India, because in India it has not got any negative connotation, so to say, and so it's kind of a neutral. In India it doesn't impact much, so to say. Of course, plant-based nutrition, environment, sustainability, those pitch might work better with a lot of people outside because their defenses won't be up. So basically, this is where we are targeting meat eaters from a personal perspective. Even from a commercial perspective, it has been proven globally that meat eaters are the primary clientele. So whether they are, in the process of being a flexitarian or in the process of giving up of meat, I think they are the primary targets. The vegetarians and vegans follow. The vegans, especially the converted vegans, are the most vocal supporters. So, people should not let go of them. They are such good allies in putting out the word, and you are in their hands, a great assets for them to really promote veganism. So I think it's a mix of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Absolutely. From what I understand, like that initial customer base, that initial community of support who are going to buy your products could be vegan, but in the longer run of things, if you're planning for larger share of market and appear more neutral, then all the other messaging works better. Great. So my next question is actually following up from that. That was more about branding and labeling and how we present things commercially or from a mission aligned perspective. But what about texture? Are you really trying to replicate the meatiness and just another question which a lot of entrepreneurs ask and a lot of these participants have asked in the past as well, that funds obviously high extrude extrusion, high moisture extruded, that is costly to get into. So how do you see like the risks and benefits of putting maybe a stopgap version of it, which is not as meaty but satisfying or attaining, catering to a certain cohort and then building out from there?
I would say yes. We targeted the texture because that is the primary. As I said, I can only speak from our perspective. Since we wanted to replace and we intend to replace meat, so that's our target, product. So in all its aspects, the texture, the taste, and the culinary utility and utilization has to be similar to meat. So that was our target. In terms of, of course, those require very big investments. So, those are not very easy to come by. Most importantly, I would say, rather than, we never try to copy any, Western company or success stories. We just try to create our own story. So what I would suggest is, think as a consumer, a neutral consumer. What are your needs? Maybe it's not exactly very meaty, but even if it is close, so like there are some mushrooms out there can be play with that, which is like very easy to obtain and work around. In USA, there are companies like the jackfruit company which are working with jackfruits, so that is not very technologically intensive and high cost setup. Develop a product which you will dispassionately consume as a consumer. If you are able to do that, that can be the first step if funding is a challenge, and then once you gain success, you can go further along.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think successful iterations are always necessary. I remember eating GoodDot products like 2 years ago for the first time. And now every few months I try it again. The texture, the flavor is definitely getting closer every day to actual meat products. So that's great. And I think,
And then very soon you'll be launching some product which will be a game changer. Like, we feel it's one of the best out there globally. Yeah.
absolutely waiting for those. I think there are a lot of. So, could you talk a little bit about your current, like initial few products that you chose, and how did you, like, did you apply 80/20, or did you focus on, the products which are selling most, some hero categories? How did you go on about deciding for that product market fit specific for, Indian consumers?
So the way we started was we identified the most eaten meat products, so to say, in India. And if you leave aside fish, which is a different category altogether, in meat it's chicken followed by mutton, goat meat in India. So we did think about chicken initially. Let's target that. The chicken, the challenge is the price points are pretty low, right? Most of the ingredients, the high protein ingredients like the isolates, the pea protein isolate, the soya protein isolates, those are very expensive. So if when we did a cost benefit analysis in terms of what is the price range we have to meet to get a chicken alternative, I think that was a very stiff target, almost unachievable at that time. So that's why we went for the second most consumed meat, was goat meat. So for economically it made sense, and of course volume wise it also made sense. So that was the target. We went for the goat meat or the lamb mutton replacement.
Got it. And yeah, could you walk us through some of the important things, like maybe focus grouping or consumer research, from understanding the consumer better perspective, like what kind of activities usually you focus on, or you focused on initially?
So, we have a very unique strategy. Generally, we don't follow a lot of management principles. We just try to follow more of a commonsensical perspective. The thing is, as I said, it all boils down to me. I had the advantage, no, in this case, looking back was a disadvantage, but right now I had an advantage that I had been consuming meat. In my family, people do eat meat. So we know what's the reference point, right? So whatever focus group we do, at the end of it, you have to meet that, the product, the mutton product. So you don't have to have a inventor's bias when you develop it. You have to be as ruthless in your criticism when you develop the product. So that was the best focus group for us. We did carry out some focus group when we developed the product. They were mixed results, in the sense that people do get, when we have a focus group, we employed some agency to carry out focus group. And when we got some results, but when we saw the videos, we saw that some of the interviewees, they would get conscious and they would apply extra, because someone is trying to convince them to see whether it's meat or not. So they are much more, I would say, analytical as compared to a regular consumer. Regular consumer just pop it in his mouth and just eat it. So that is what we focused on, and that was the thing. Our benchmark was mutton. Try to develop as close as mutton.
Yeah, very interesting. And could you maybe throw some lights on the initial team? So let's just say it was just you, idea in your mind, and now you're looking at hiring some of the first few employees. So that in relation to specifically food science and hiring a food scientist, and how that has maybe improved or accelerated your
Yeah,
process. Some general
it has
insights on that.
definitely improved. That when we started out, there was not much. Of course, the seed of GoodDot was germinated in the year 2003, way back in 2003, when I was in my final year of engineering. At that time, I was on and off meat. One thing which defines me is an animal lover, but I like the taste of meat. So it was a moral dilemma when I was consuming it. So there was a research sponsored by the Dutch government on tissue culture based meat. So that was the first time I noticed that, hang on, you can get meat without killing animals. So that excited my interest in the space. So I was even, dwelling with an idea of actually going ahead and doing an MS in biochemical engineering from the States to, develop some of those products. So as a matter of hobby, I kept a track on the segment. It was, as I said, it was in 2013, we formed a team. My brother, who has done his PhD in protein chemistry from the US, I think he was the main guy. We looked at all the patents filed since 1960, late 1960s, in the field of extrusion. So that was the first point. In fact, we had even gone to CFTRI probably in 2014-15, if I remember correctly, to inquire if they have some skill sets. They didn't have at that moment of time. So apart from that, we have some, I would say biochemical engineers. They were having more, they left us, but they were having some more I would say, experience in the tissue culture part of stuff. So eventually, there are a lot of equipment manufacturers also, and there are a lot of courses. For example, University of Texas at Austin has got an extrusion-based course on plant-based meat. So that gives you a fairly rough idea as to how you can start. There are equipment manufacturers like Wenger, Klextral, the global equipment manufacturer. They give, their labs for trials, to see what it all belongs. So eventually, we had a team of 6 or 7 people bringing in different, skill sets, from a flavoring expert to a protein chemist. Me having some knowledge of machine in my chemical engineering days. So iteration of the, modifying the machines, because many times when you do get those extruders, those are not plug and play format. If you do a plug and play format, you'll get a base product which may not be as close to meat as what you wish to. So you would need also have to have some instrumentation knowledge, how you can modify the, equipments to, make a product as per your texture. So overall, it took us, some time, again, balancing cost as well as, our own expertise to finally get the products. So it's a trial and error, starting with a few skill sets, what you have got. Once you get the first lead, then it gets easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just some questions around that initial setup. How did you, like most people, when you hear their success stories, they start small, with a few equipments in a smaller room. So could you just describe, now we obviously know about your factories that are present and the kind of infrastructure they have. I think there are some videos online as well, which some of the participants might have seen. But could you just walk us through that journey of how did that come in, milestone wise or timeline wise? And how long
Yeah.
did it take you to establish the full functioning facility?
So individually, we were working at a lab level for 3 years just to develop the product. Once we developed the product, it took 1.5 years to set up the factory. At that time, we were working through, friends and family and internal accruals as to how we'll set those things up. But the moment we launched, the moment we went in seriously, we never went at small scale. That was, in our case, we are lucky enough to call some high net worth individuals as our friends and family. So the investment what we raised was, was pretty decent to begin with at a very starting stage. So our distribution partner is RCM. RCM has got 7,500 stores across India, and they have a massive volumes. And the owner of RCM, Mr. Tilok Chand Chabra, he's HNI, $1 billion worth, more than $1 billion to $2 billion worth himself. So he's also a shareholder in GoodDot. So he was the main, guy who financed us. So we started out at a pretty decent scale to begin with. So that is our story. That may not work for everyone, but I think now more and more VCs and accelerators and those guys showing interest. I think it is very easy for people to start small and then scale up. So don't think about if you have those resources. Of course, start at a mid scale and then go ahead. Otherwise, start at a small scale. Prove your product. Go to these. I think GFI is doing a wonderful job in connecting the accelerators and other people to these companies with new products. So just focus on the product and don't worry about the future. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, and this is like one of the most common questions, right? How do we get started in a market where there's maybe less patient capital or less investments in the fixed assets or from investor side? So I think those are all great perspectives, and I think that's very valuable. My next questions were actually about distribution. You talked a little bit about RCM and how they were some of the shareholders, so that can maybe come relatively easily. But distribution is also a challenge, especially for cold chain and having that network. So what kind of concerns you had maybe while developing shelf stable versus frozen products, and how did you go on about thinking on those lines?
Um, Actually, initially when we thought about and when we were developing our product, we were targeting more at a frozen format, right? Because it's easier to develop a frozen format product. Um, and of course, we knew that distribution. See, business is not very easy. Developing a product is really hard, especially in a new category. But even more hard than that, once you develop a product, how do you find the market? Because once what happens is that when people are small, right, even though there is an opportunity out there, no brand awareness has been created, no category has been created. So even though it is a latent need of people, even if you explain to them, they will not understand it. But now when a big player comes in, creates awareness and all, then the market really matures and easier acceptance is there, which is going to happen eventually. Not now. I think still market is pretty unaware about the category. Imagine when Nestle launched Maggie, right? They had a massive campaign all across India to get the children get used to noodles. They had competitions and all that free. So to create a category, it's a Herculean effort. So I would say, pick your targets well. Don't be over ambitious. You can't create a category unless you are supremely funded by VCs and are willing to burn loads and loads of cash. I would say, again, go back to the fundamental, develop a product which you, your relatives, your friends will eat, right? At a fair price. So once you do that, frozen is also okay. For us, RCM had a challenge that they didn't have a frozen supply chain. So we, by nature of choice, we didn't have a choice. If we had to tap into RCM channel, we had to develop a shelf stable option, and all our products had to be shelf stable options. So that was a challenge, and we developed that. Yeah.
In retrospect, do you think that that was kind of a blessing in disguise because shelf stability
Absolutely,
means?
absolutely. We can export out, we can send it at a fraction of a cost that can be stored with a great shelf life. I think that was not planned. That's why I say you cannot copy anyone, right? We wanted to develop a product and we tackled every problem coming uniquely in our own, in front of us, tried to tackle it in the most commonsensical manner, what we could. So it took time. I would not say it was easy. The worst thing was like we had developed the product, we were ready to go to the market. When this challenge came about, having the shelf stability, it's a very difficult process. The thermal sterilization, the retort process that just kills the taste and texture. Normal food stuff also gets really bad. How do you maintain the integrity of the food product like a meat alternative through that? We had to again go back to the drawing board and work on that.
Got it. So, could you just throw some lights on what are the usual shelf lives for your different, cohort of products? And post-COVID, obviously you had a very robust distribution in place, but just from a general perspective as well, how that supply chain of distribution has disrupted, and people who are thinking post-COVID of innovating or launching products in this sector, how they should better think about it.
So I think post-COVID is a very good space for food business. I think COVID has proven that two sectors are evergreen: health and I would say food, right? We did think education was evergreen, but that has been belied. That ranks lower than health and food. Food is and as the market is growing, as the population is growing, the market will keep on growing. So food, will always have a demand. I would say in terms of how do they need to plan out the distribution part of it, is that you know don't be ambitious, because you'll have two battles to fight. First of all, you'll have to rather three, you'll have to develop a product which is a good alternative. That will be the most tricky part. Till you develop that, don't focus on any other thing. Just don't focus on what you'll be distributing, where you'll get the finances. Try to hustle and develop a product. Or if you don't know, go to universities, go to institutions, go to equipment manufacturers. They'll give you some ideas. So that can be your starting point. Once you develop the product, think about the distribution and the finance simultaneously, and think small. I would say if we would not have had RCM, we would definitely have thought small, because there was no point in thinking big.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
yeah,
it's a good time. I think when we started, there was nothing. There was nothing. People will scoff at the idea. Now I think it's accepted.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I keep telling a lot of these participants and also a lot of entrepreneurs, as long as you're solving for taste and getting a really good product out, I think there are other stakeholders like investors and distributors who've really come in the community now in the past 2 years
Yes.
and really want to help out these businesses. So
Yes.
that kind of supply is definitely there. It's just that there are not enough entrepreneurs solving for a really specific taste problem and really getting out good
Yes.
quality
Yes.
products out.
Yes. 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 And there are many. It's just around the corner. Just have to look in your own life. There will be so many gaps which have not been targeted yet. So that can be done.
Yeah, and absolutely. Some of these participants are working on very, very different seafoods. products and meat products. So you'll be very excited. I'll share. Actually, there's a solutions wall on our website as well at the smartproteinchallenge.com. So you can take a look at that to
Okay,
just
for sure.
understand what these ideas are. But some of these top teams were also going to pitch their ideas, and then more of it is going to come out in the community. So we'll be happy to connect them with you as well in the coming days.
Sure.
So one question is about for PBM companies starting in this sector, just starting out, what marketing strategies are most affordable and work out best? I understand that depends on your TG, etc. So from your perspective, from what I understand, you're targeting a lot of different segments. I've seen your YouTube videos, your Hindi cooking recipe channels
Yeah.
with GoodDot products. At the same time, there's this more sophisticated messaging on LinkedIn through some of your posts. So it's like a diverse mix. So could you just throw some light on that?
I would say, it's not every day. It's like we are catering to Bharat as well as we are catering to India, right? RCM primarily takes care of Bharat, right? So, that is a very different messaging. That's a very different channel. And whereas, India is a very different channel. By that, I mean, people who are looking at, different, benefits out of these products and the level of awareness. So, if you're asking a cost-effective channel, I think the post-COVID world has shown that the e-commerce based channel, right? That's a very, very effective way to go about stuff. If you either can get someone in your team who's good in e-commerce or social media marketing, I think you can just start shipping out of your home. You don't need any distributor. Of course, if you'll have lower cost, you'll need to do lower sales to meet your expenses. So that's why don't go into the traditional route. I think unless you have some resources like we had, or probably you'll have some backing of big players or big investors, then that's a good channel to go. Otherwise, I think e-commerce is a way to go. Yeah.
Awesome. My next question is actually about what geographies did you first launch in, and how did you decide on those? Maybe metro-wise versus, like, again, India versus Bharat, or a specific state. Maybe you started out with Rajasthan since that was your base. So just some insights there.
Um, if you ask our own individual story, I think that was our challenge to begin with. We were faced with fire from day one. The challenge with RCM was that there's no soft launch. It has to be a hard launch all across India. Because if you launch in, say, east of India, the people in South India will start complaining we did not get the product. So right from the day zero, we were operating at scale. So that was our initiation with fire to begin with, and we committed a lot of mistakes. We learned a lot of stuff, but we are thankful for those experiences. That even if we have to scale 100 times right now, we can do it, because we have got those processes in place. It just needs a replication. That's just about it. So that is I would not say, that works for everyone. But what was your question exactly? I'll answer generally. This is our stuff. Can I come back to the question again?
So yeah, the question was more like in hindsight,
Geography.
like, geography, and which specific
Geography.
market did you target? And in
So
hindsight,
if suppose
would you like to
you
change
see,
those?
see what we are doing is very different. GoodDot, we had the support of RCM, so we launched India at scale, right? GoodDo, we are on our own, right? So where have we started? We set up the prototype in Udaipur, learned it. In fact, you'll be happy to note that Lonely Planet ranked GoodDo as world's #2 vegan food truck. So we never knew, we just got that award. Anyway, having said that, our first city of target was Mumbai, right? We are confused between Mumbai and Bangalore. We are thinking whether we should go for Mumbai or Bangalore because of more awareness and more openness to adoption of new technologies and new products. So we don't, the way probably we need to explain to someone in Udaipur, we don't need to explain in Mumbai. So for a lot of participants, I would say target the bigger cities: Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, those kind of stuff, Kolkata. So which is closer to you, easier for you and your team, and focus on that cities.
Yeah, my next question is actually from just your entire journey for past 3 years. Are there any India-specific market insights or ecosystem insights which you were really surprised, because you've also had a lot of experience in the West, studied there? So I mean, from a perspective of thinking, Abhinav had that. So basically, from a perspective of thinking, okay, these things are going to work for me. Have there been any pleasant surprises or really shocking surprises in that journey, and could you highlight those from experience?
Yeah, actually, the fact is, we were thinking it'll like catch like fire the moment we just roll out. It'll just, every year, every month, the moment someone tries it, they'll become a regular consumer. So that doesn't happen. It takes time for people to, get associated or accept the concepts for sure. So that was the first thing, but you have to be foolish, to take the jump, right? So that's the thing. It is hard to convince people who don't have a knowledge. As I said, there is a need which is latent. Eating of plant-based alternative is a very strong latent need. How do you manifest it? How do you promote that? I think that's the challenge. But what we have seen is that the very distinctive is that meat eaters are the low-hanging fruits. They easily accept the food product. Price sensitivity and taste. I think taste is primary, followed by price sensitivity. In India, nothing else is more important. Taste and price. Forget about health, environment, everything. That's not the game changer. It's taste and price. So that's what we had assumed, and that really is the key to crack the Indian market for sure. Having said that, a lot of people are now. It gets easier. So maybe what this is an accumulated knowledge over the period. We have to take it with a pinch of salt, right? Because we are in a different age, in different awareness space, right? But still, I think taste and price is going to be predominant, and that is correct. It will still go on, not just in India. Interestingly, even outside. This is our own experience. Yeah.
And now you're obviously getting into plant-based dairy and other plant-based products as well. So could you talk us a little bit, talk our participants through a little bit about your future vision of how GoodDot is going to launch different products, just some 2-year, 3-year goals, something to that tune.
So basically, we intend to be one of the major global players. We are going after the big boys out there, and everything has been through internal accrual. We have been bootstrapped. There are some figures I cannot share, but those are quite amazing. Even if you compare with the global leader like Beyond Meat, I would say, we are not like very far off in some of the criterias what we have, have internally, and that's all, internal. I think we are going to diversify. We are, as I said, we are a vegan company. Our entire ecosystem is vegan. So the fact is, wherever there are opportunities to disrupt the animal-based products, we will be going for that. In terms of dairy, we have had some great insights because most of every product which is used, butter, mayo, and even we had ice creams in Udaipur, was all in-house, through a sister company which is going to launch some products. So we have tested it with paying consumers at our outlets. So we have got some reviews, we have worked on them. So we will be launching them subsequently, but we are taking it one step at a time. Yeah.
Makes sense, yeah. And I'll just quickly remind everyone to start putting in their Q&As. If not, obviously, we'll start the live Q&A session in a couple of minutes, and then you can just unmute yourself, your video, and then ask the question. My next question is actually on GoodDo, Abhishek. And, the question says your go-to market strategy involved starting your own, control chain of kiosks and, shops, QSR shops. Why did you prefer this route over a strategic partner, let's just say getting into Horeca, other channels of Horeca? Just some lights there. And do you think that if somebody is looking at premium plant-based meat or seafood products, what would be the right way? Own kiosks, investing in that, building it one after the other, or going through a strategic partner route?
I think we have learned quite a lot in GoodDo. I think more than any other stuff, of course, the product development part is one thing. RCM is an automatic route. So we have learned quite a lot from GoodDo. There are so many interesting, interesting insights, with GoodDo. The fact was, we had initially launched most of our flagship product right now are ready to cook, like vegetarian bites, proteins, right? So when we looked at Amazon reviews, we are also selling on Amazon. So probably around 30% were negative reviews. and 70% were positive reviews. So we thought, hang on, either our product is good or maybe it's not good. So we carried out some, background focus group questionnaire studies and all from those guys who gave us negative reviews, and also some who gave positive reviews. What we learned was, since it was ready to cook, it was not in a finished format. And that was intentional because we wanted to go for a larger addressable market. A chicken has got more market share as compared to the chicken nugget, right? So we wanted to go for the higher, total addressable market size. But people who gave us negative, they did not cook it the way it should have been cooked. So that was when we first launched our food truck with biryani, wraps, burgers, and everything vegan. And we not just received positive replies from people, we received franchisee requests from across India, even outside India. We thought, hang on, there's something serious which is going on here. Our product is good, whatever we believe, and there's a good response. So that's why we set up GoodDot. And now with GoodDot, that's also as a test format for our dairy options and all, we are seeing it. So GoodDot, I think, is a great, now with COVID, again, the equation changes. Now we have to be very, very, so now we are working on even more, refined formats of GoodDot, wherein the investments are less, the turnaround time is lesser. So we are working on that. So that's again a great challenging for, and a lot of work is going on in that aspect. And we are learning still.
Got it. Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
one of the key parameters is how much revenue you're getting per square foot or something in such a model. And that's what you're trying to optimize for, I think is what you said.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah.
And
That's
also just to add to it, why we went for good, that one from the consumer perspective, the other from, no one believes you unless you don't believe yourself. Even if you're selling gold, no one knows this is gold, no one will believe you. So we put our money where our mouth is. We invested our own money to set up, nice outlets in premium location where we are putting our own money to say that the entire menu is curated out of GoodDot products. And we are able to, do these numbers. So think about the potential of the product. So now eventually people have started believing, but yeah, initially you have to believe on your own concept.
Yeah. So is it safe to say that because you were the first mover and people had not experienced anything of this sort, and also because there was less data and very structured mechanisms of getting a lot of that focus grouping done, this kiosk model really served for a lot of the, those needs as well. And that's why
Yeah.
maybe.
And I think the kind of insights, some of the interesting insights, what we have, no one has in the globe. In a developing country, in a vegan QSR format, what's the response of a paying consumer? The data, what we have, no one has. So I think we can, that's what we are customizing a lot of stuff, future, models and products based upon those feedbacks.
Yeah, I absolutely love the data collection bit
Yeah.
where you're capturing a lot of, interesting
Yeah.
insights. There are testimonial books whenever you go to
Yeah.
GoodDot kiosk. So that's
Absolutely.
great. Could you maybe tell our audience a little bit about what are the key things one should really track for in the early customers? Obviously, one is their how much they would like to pay, some specific sensory insights that they might be giving. Anything else?
I would say, as I said, vegetarians are the high hanging fruits, right? So, your targeting should not be, don't worry about them. But some people who cross the hitch of actually trying out the product, they have the maximum loyalty also. But because they don't get this kind of satiation and taste in vegetarian or vegan food products, right? So I would say it's all very, very case by case basis. I would not try to say something which might not work. As I said, it goes on to the fundamental. Others come secondary, taste and price. What you're trying to, first of all, what gaps are there, especially in the vegan or plant-based space? What you're trying to fill? Does your taste is matching? If it is not matching, how will match the taste? And when that is matching, when you have that, then go for the price. How can you reduce the price? Either in the technology or in the raw materials or whatever. So go in a one by one step. Don't, no point in thinking about the fourth challenge. The first is getting the taste, first getting the need, gap, taste, and then the price. Everything else will follow. No problem.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how much you can reveal about this specific question, but can you just give us a breakdown of your different channels and what's working best in terms of the maximum
So
sales or
of
revenue?
course, that's a proprietary information, but I can very well say that, RCM is our primary channel. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think D2C might be working well after COVID now, Amazon, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. There has been almost 100% increase. Yeah. There.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So I think we can get to the live Q&A bit. So anybody, if you have a question, just unmute yourself and you can go on about asking the question now. Yeah, Varun, please go.
Hi, Abhishek. Really appreciate your insights, and your journey has been really very inspiring. So one of
Thanks.
the extending to my question, which I actually added on this cold chain infrastructure for distribution, I would just like to bring on one of the life situation, which like I am based out of New Zealand, and over here we get Beyond Burgers in two supermarkets. So in supermarket A, the Beyond Burgers are placed right adjacent to the hamburgers, so that customers can our consumers can have a side by side comparison. In supermarket B, the Beyond Burgers are in a totally different area of the supermarket in some freezer cabinet. So how do you perceive these kind of distribution practices posing a challenge in, say, sales and eventually affecting the business from a business perspective?
I think they would definitely affect the business. You don't control a lot of stuff, especially for, when you start out small, say a Walmart or a Tesco or a Woolworth, where they are going to place. You don't have a say in that. They can ask you, but it's ultimately their decision, right? Of course, we have not had, those kind of examples in our own, experiences, but I would say that, uh, just thinking out of the box, I think it's obviously better to be placed next to the meat, because this is what you're trying to, the consumer who is going to that section with a mindset of getting meat or a hamburger will definitely give it a shot, right? So I would say it does hamper, but there are some things which are not within the control of the company. So I would say there would be a mix, right? Some would put it in that particular channel, some will not put it near to that. So focus on what's good for you, and focus on your own branding, on your own social media marketing, and educate the consumer. I think that you can do, and take care of these kind of stuff. Yeah.
Sure, definitely. Like that's a really
Yeah.
very good insight on that. Thank you, Abhishek.
Yeah. Thanks, Gaurav. Yeah.
Thanks, Varun. Who would like to go next? Yeah, please go on, whoever has their mic switched on. Are you asking? I don't know if this participant's asking. Anybody else? Would you like to go next? Or if Varun, if you have any follow-up question? Okay, great. So till then, I can just cover a few more from the form while people are thinking about their questions.
Sure.
I'll encourage everyone to just keep few questions lined up for the next 15 minutes. Till then, I'll quickly cover one from our form. So yeah, this is more of a general advice kind of you come from a chemical engineering background, you said. There are a lot of non-scientific founders in India who are mission aligned, probably, who care for the cause, but don't know how to go on about doing that. Obviously, we are trying to bridge that by putting in technical teams together, more diverse teams together. Even that was one of the recommended criteria for the challenge, that you have at least a food scientist in every team. But could you throw some lights on your own journey of going on about learning a lot of these things, and what things have helped you just learn new concepts in food processing, food science?
Uh, See, this is not rocket science. Anything can be learned. People who you just need to have that passion and the unwillingness to give it up. So the fact is, you have internet, right? Everything is out there. If you don't get a direct information, then there are institutions which give you that information. There might be ingredient suppliers, manufacturers, which can give you those. They are ready made. For example, as I said, some of the leading equipment manufacturer, they give their labs for a payment, and with some support. So that can be a starting point. I mean to say, there's so many stuff what you can do. Uh, uh, it all starts in the mind, right? I was in the IRS. I had left chemical engineering way back in 2004. So I was in the Indian Revenue Service for 7 years, 8 years, and before that I was doing some other federal government jobs. So I was disconnected. I just kept a tab on the. As a consumer, I was not looking to enter this space. Since 2003, I was looking when this kind of products hit the Indian market. So that was just as a matter of hobby. I never knew that things will align that I'll enter the space. But nothing happened, so I had to make a move. That's what I did. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. While I cover, anybody else has a question now?
Yeah. Hi.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm Lovely. I'm the founder of Brew 51. It's a plant-based
Okay.
food company.
Sure.
So you mentioned having to customize your extruders for GoodDot, right? So I had a couple of questions on that. I firstly wanted to understand what were the timelines like for you when you were designing the process and equipment, construction of the equipment itself, and installation and testing of it. What were the timelines like for these different?
So, of course, I can't exactly, because of proprietary, information, I can't disclose everything, but I can definitely tell you that since 2013 onwards, so from the first day, we seriously raised, internal money and started working, because we left, some development part on the basis of the future cost involved. Because we had worked close to 8 months working on that format, and we thought, because ultimately you have to load the cost onto the product, right? You have to, if you're in the business, you have to make profit. So that was not the deal. So overall, the entire development process from trial and error, giving up some of the earlier trials, was 3.5 years. That's what it took us. Yeah.
Got it. And sorry, Shardul, I have a few follow-up questions. Can I go?
Yeah, maybe one of those you can cover up right now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I wanted to understand, in your experience, was it better for you to work with a company like Black and Beach for construction, or did you find it easier and more efficient to work with local manufacturing companies?
Can you repeat the question, please?
So have you found it easier to work with engineering company like Black and Beach to do the construction of the equipment? Or was it better to go with your design to a local machining person or engineering company that for the?
I think of course, if you can afford, that's the best thing, because the greenfield project, they are experts in that, right? If it is possible, I think. But if you are hustling, then you'll need to have some of the skill sets. For example, some of our investors, he had a great experience in manufacturing. He has set up some of the largest plants out here. They happen to be investor with a minority equity holding. So I would say, there are three ways to go about it. First of all, if you can afford, get the best. They'll take care of so many mistakes what ordinary, local guys can commit, right? Secondly, if you don't have funding or a lot of money to be spent, I think you can start small. Think about small scale. Don't think about medium or large scale. Thirdly, I would say, if at all you're thinking about large scale and you have the funding, then you do a cost benefit analysis. If there are people whom you trust, who have some pedigree, not necessarily in the similar field, but relatively similar field, I think you can take a chance with them also. So the various ways you can go about it. It all depends upon your own situation there.
Understood. Thanks, Abhishek.
Circle back to you, Ramli, if you don't have enough questions. But thank you so much for those two very insightful, interesting questions. Varun, do you want to quickly follow up on that? Varun Garodia.
Yeah. So having a follow-up question on Ravli's question. So Abhishek, I wanted to ask, like, what are the challenges you perceive in partnering with, say, even academic institution overseas, especially the cross-border partnerships, or like, say, any of the ingredient manufacturers or any of the technology providers overseas? Like, how these partnerships can be a bit tracky sometimes from a business perspective.
I don't see any reason they need to be, tricky. I think, the fact is, for example, these guys are plant-made guys, right? They have come up with a vegan egg. They have, got a patent, or probably, tied up with IIT Delhi, and they have got it, right? I don't see any reason beyond meat. I think, if I remember correctly, maybe, some university, I forget the name of the university, they had that initial tie with them, right? So they have their own, they are not interested in Minnesota. Thanks, Varun. So University of Minnesota, beyond Ethan Brown, had some tie-up with those guys. They gave the initial lead. So it depends upon person. I don't think so any institution will play any problem. They also want to grow, and this is not their core focus. Their core focus is something else. So they would definitely help you out. I don't see any reason, unless Of course, with strategic players is a different thing, boss. You know,
Right.
strategic players in the space who are the biggies, you know, the biggies
Yeah.
of the established setups. They might have, some, you might, for example, there has been an instance in, Beyond Meat having tied up with Tyson Foods. They had some differences, and Tyson Foods started their own burgers. Beyond Meat, separated from them, and they started their own stuff. So you have to be, in the drafting of agreements with strategic players. I think you need to have a very good legal protection in that case. Otherwise, I think your legal team, if it is good enough, I think they will take care of a lot of stuff which can come about. And there are templates also which needs to be customized as per your own need. Yeah.
Very well said, Abhishek. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the next question, again, you can just answer this a little generally, but what are the first few equipments that are needed to add a pilot scale, or at least at a small manufacturing setup level, that you definitely need to purchase to get good quality texturize, if you want to do
The
that in-house
texture
and
is,
not outsource this?
I think the of course, while you can't get some of the analytical lab equipment, they're pretty expensive. So you can get it done studies, through by paying, get them some of those texturization studies done. So I would not suggest that, because they are useless if you have not developed a product. No need to, incur in capital expenditure. But those will be important. How to get the bite, was a bonding part of it. So that's the analysis part. Whenever you do trial, go to the lab, see how the structure is coming, how the once you are cooking it in the gravy, see how the flavor profile is getting into those stuff. Extruders, of course, is the most important stuff. What extruders are you going to go for? You have to trial out, you have to go and see, and from a cost perspective, you have to understand how do you go for that. And there are plug and play formats, but then again, those won't be it, because they are so difficult to I would say have the flavoring imparted and all that, because they're quite dense in that format. So you have to find ways where you can develop that. That will be your own skill set which will come in.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting stuff. So just on the like, how did you go on about choosing which extruders do you put? What that research looked like for you? I'm sure you must have
Long,
spoken to a lot of
yeah.
manufacturers.
Of course, I'll answer that generically. It's a long research. As I said, we went for some of the ones which we felt were doing well, but economically, when we thought that there might be some challenges, we thought if there are any alternatives to that, then if those alternatives were also not up to the mark, then you had to customize it as per your own requirement. So you learn along the way. It's not like you have, when you start out developing stuff, you won't have a linear path. You will have to, you will make progress, you'll go to 80% progress, and then again start from zero. So that is going to be a search, a hard search. And you have to be careful that everyone out there will be telling that they have the perfect solution for you. So it's up to you to who have to make the, don't pull the trigger till you're fairly comfortable.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. That's great general advice about how to go on
Now,
about
there have
this.
been, I'll not take the name. There have been cases where people have burnt, not in India. I have been interacting with some people outside India. Like, it's a big risk. You have to be very careful. And if you know what's a beautiful thing about it, a funny thing about it, and those guys, are, they have sold that set of equipments to the particular company. It's a big company out there. They've sold and based upon their own experience of the client, now they're advising against that particular channel of equipment. It will not work in that. Why did you sell millions of dollars of worth good there?
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. What is your opinion on, quickly, like, plant-based dairies category and plant-based seafood category? Like, plant-based dairy more from the perspective that it's very has a religious connotations, a lot of health connotations in Indian consumers' mindset. So that, and then obviously from a perspective of non-availability of seafood, plant-based alternatives at all. Like, that's a big white space. So those two categories, how do you look at?
I would say plant-based dairy has got a great potential in India, but it requires a lot of education, awareness creation, right? In India, for example, we are targeting, this is what we are targeting from an ethical perspective, right? Our messaging, if you see, more or less is on those lines. Uh, of course, dairy has got a huge cruelty footprint, but maybe that messaging may not work in India. because a lot of people are oblivious and they would like to remain oblivious to the challenges of cruelty in the. So you can take a health perspective, lactose free, or those kind of stuff, sustainability, pitch. It will grow into very big, but it will take time. You have to be patient. You have to believe in your product and try to, the thing with, animal products are that they are static. As long as you are under them, they'll have a hedge under them in terms of price and taste. But the moment you cross that, you can iterate, you can cross that. Once you cross that, it becomes a no-brainer to a consumer. So you have to be patient and work on that. So plant-based dairy, I would say, is a good, but you have to be patient in that space. Plant-based seafood, again, as any other plant-based alternative space. But I think, again, there you can even go for the cruelty aspect, the arsenic, the lead pollutions, and those kind of pitch, which is people are very much aware. And also its availability. It's not available everywhere, right? The cold chain, transportation and all that. So I think it's a very interesting space. Yeah.
Got it. So Shailesh, do you want to ask a question next?
Am I audible?
Okay. Yeah. Please go on. Introduce yourself and quickly get the question.
Sure. So I'm a chartered accountant and currently I'm pursuing my MBA from IIM Shillong. So one of the things which I wanted to understand was, what are the processes which GoodDot have actually outsourced, and which processes do they handle in-house? And has there been any change over this mix throughout the years that GoodDot has been functioning?
So every process is in-house except Thai curry, what we make. So we have a co-packer in Thailand. So we send our vegetarian protein meat product to them, and they make a curry out of it and send us back. So till date, everything has been in-house. Going ahead, some of the finished formats, for example, curries and other stuff, maybe even burgers and all what we have developed, we'll pass on to the co-packer and they can, make that for us. But still the base IP remains with the company. And overall, we have to keep it in-house, and we will remain to keep it in-house. Of course, the finished formats, I think we will go ahead with some co-packers. So that strategy for the finished formats, we will be a bit more liberal going ahead.
Makes sense. We have still like 7-8 minutes. We started a little late for everybody who joined us, well into the session. Priya, why don't you go next with your question?
Yeah, hi Abhishek. My question is more to do with product placement, particularly I think in terms of the nomenclature being used. So there's, even though I think, you mentioned in terms of, not to narrow down the TG, but I think from what I've seen with respect to GoodDot, there's proteas, there's veg biryani, and there's vegican and so on. Now, what's the thought process that really went behind, calling out those particular nomenclature?
So for the first product, what we launched, which is still remains our flagship product, was termed as vegetarian meat.
Yeah.
So, that we changed it to vegetarian bites after 1.5 or 2 years or something like that, by making a small amendment to the product. Having said that, why we went for vegetarian meat initially was to, this was a totally unaware category. No one knew about the stuff. So just looking at vegetarian meat, people either will be curious or amused, either ways. So at least it catches their attention, and that also explains what the product is. That was quite generic. Protease, the second product was protease, because there was a demand within our RCM channel that, a lot of vegetarians are turned off by the term meat, right? So, and this is too meaty for them. So can you develop a product which is, intermediate between, meat and other vegetarian products, something intermittent. So of course that had a higher protein content. So we named it, very neutrally as protease. Subsequently, now that our channel awareness has increased quite a lot, we do realize that the word, we have to displace meat from being the gold standard, because where plant-based products are better in taste, nutrition, and overall ecological footprint. So why we should, have the clutches of meat, the word meat. So we were confident enough, we were grown enough, so we took away the word meat and we had vegetarian bites. So this is our thought process, and going ahead, we will try to, keep away and try to, wean away from the term meat or any reference to those stuff, because we are a category unto ourselves.
Yeah, and
Thank
other
you.
people who've joined us a little late into the session, Abhishek talked a lot about his personal mission also, coming from the vegan community, doing for that. So again, like what I think he suggested is figure out what's working for you individually, stay true to your authentic story, and then go on about, using other market cues that consumers are giving you as you go on about it, iterating your branding or packaging. Great. So Debabrata, can you go next? And then after that, we can quickly go with her question.
Hi Abhishek. So basically, my question is like you have so diversified product line in Indian market. So among which product you are getting the best response from the Indian market sales?
So I would say, as I said, our primary sales channel is RCM. In RCM, vegetarian bites and proteins are our biggest sellers. We are getting very good response. More in the general trade and I would say e-commerce, it is more dispersed. So we have good response to biryani also, a good response to Thai curry also. So it all depends. Across the channel, it is different. But still, I would say vegetarian bites, is doing fairly well.
All right. So something which you can use in many formats, probably.
Yeah,
That's what consumers
it's
are
more
looking for.
generic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And more people are knowing how to cook it. So, they are coming back. So that is adding to the volumes. Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely just adding to the previous point as well around labeling, I think GoodDot had a lot of different challenges compared to somebody who's looking to enter the market now. There was no category, they had to build that awareness. If you see their YouTube channel and the kind of work they've put into just educating a lot of the Bharat consumer, that's just amazing. You don't necessarily have to do that now because people are so aware of plant-based category as whole and its benefits. So again, look for your context, look for data, the most relevant data points that are coming from your own focus grouping, try to make it diverse. Don't fall into the biases of a particular sample size, which might be just vegan or it might be just non-vegetarian. Try to keep it mixed and then arrive at your own conclusions. And again, like a lot of this in a formal way would be available soon through our consumer research studies. So hope that adds perspective as well. Ravli, why don't you quickly go next and then we can take maybe a couple more questions before we, end our session today.
Thanks, Shardul. Abhishek, my question for you is, while you were discussing what products you started with, you spoke about chicken and mutton. I wanted to understand why you did not choose to go with seafood, and if you have any plans of working on seafood in the future.
No, for sure. We do have plans to work on seafood. As I said, wherever animals are being used, we have a plan. We have some products under development. We are working on. In fact, we have done a lot of fantastic vegan tuna. That is better than many out there. And we have done the focus group. So initially, fish has got a flaky texture, right? So it is more of a formed product more than an extruded product, right? So you'll need to have a secondary stage, working on that. And then when you do format, I think, we are working on that. There's still some time there wherein, you have to make it shelf stable also if we have to use our own channel. Frozen, it's easier. It's relatively easier, but when you go through it, the thermal sterilization process, the textural integrity is not maintained. But we are getting some cues as to how to go through that. But still, I think it's a massive market. There are global companies who have just started with one, fish product, and then they're doing very well. This is going to be a big, space going ahead. And then in India, I think has been tapped into that much, but it's a big market. I'm sure there will be a lot of people who will be interested in that.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, just a quick question before I go to Advait next. That's like more of a personal question as well. Just wanted to understand your insights on the TAM or the market size. Those data points are missing. How you currently, a lot of entrepreneurs have that question when they are preparing their pitch deck for investors, etc. How do you go on about doing those back of the envelope calculations while you're, thinking of strategies?
So, that's a very interesting question, Shardul. A lot of people are interested to go for that, especially when they have to pitch to investors. They need those data, or you have to, excite the corporates to, invest in the space or come into the space. But the reality is no one knows, right? The reality is no one knows. But I can say the size will be bigger than what any of us have imagined. Because our take is very different. Our take is very, very different than others in the globe, and that doesn't work here. Meat industry, that is going to be disrupted. I'm talking the plant-based meat now. The meat industry, which is going to be disrupted. right? Then very interestingly, we have some data point which is quite interesting, and experiences and anecdotes. Lentil industry is going to be disrupted, right? Nowhere else in the world. uh, Imagine, when I would eat meat, and that I give example, earlier when I would go out and eat meat, I would not order a dal or a lentil. But if I'm eating a vegan sabzi, I'm going to order a dal. So there have been cases where, people who have cooked vegetarian bites have not cooked lentils the entire day. So that market is also open for grabs. The soya chunk, the soya nuggets market is open for disruption. So I mean to say, it's the total addressable market size is so humongous that I can't wrap my head around it. It's too big to even comment. Eventually, it will prove itself. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, Advait, do you want to quickly go next? And this is our last question for the day.
Hello, Abhishek. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So, sir, from your perspective, or from perspectives of people in your band of business, so what do you think about introducing a purely vegan product that mimics meat source, or introducing a vegan meat product, but it is also it also has characteristics other than vegan, like like in the states, many psychoactive compounds are being used, and they are being fused into the foods, to sell to more people. So, like, what do you think about that? Those products.
I think that would require, those products will definitely have a market. Not as big. I don't know how big it would be depending upon utility and it depending upon its functionality. In terms of, suppose, you have a product which is on a channel of vegetarian meat product or vegetarian dairy product, but has got a functionality of, say, good digestion, probiotic, maybe, anything else, functionality you're saying about, stuff. Nowadays hemp is being used in so many stuff and all that. So of course there will be a big market, but that market will realize its potential when the awareness level goes down to the consumer. So anyone who's planning that should have a very strong awareness creation plan. How are you going to make people see the benefit out of it and realize the benefit out of it? So it will be a big market. In India, anything can be big provided you can strike the chord. But as I said, category creation is a humongous cost involvement task. We have not done that. We have done it organically. But if someone can get the funding and is willing to bite the bullet, I think it is a big market out there.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Advait. Yeah, just adding to that, I think nootropics or, very specific functional ingredients, the market is definitely much smaller. US is like a way more evolved food processing ecosystem in general. Like they've processed everything out there. So now they're thinking of very new innovative categories, right? We don't do that. So there's just so much scope in basic processing and value addition these segments would always be niche compared to the market size that your mainstream solutions could offer. But again, like Abhishek said, anything could be a good enough.
And just to add to that, this is a final parting shot, Shardul. I'll just add to that. Take away the glass ceiling of India from your mind. We can be global, right? We have started exporting and we are seeing great response. Now we will be entering those markets. So you have the cost advantage. If you can create a good product, you can sell in America. So the entire globe is your playground. It all depends upon what product you have made and what value proposition you bring onto the table.
Great advice. Like we focus so much on B2B opportunities and also B2C opportunities now that GoodDot is proving. Cost advantages, talent advantages, rapid prototyping in India, manufacturing at scale in India. Those are so many good advantages. If you've attended the Smart Protein Summit, you already know that. So
and you will be surprised. I can't disclose, but some of the one very big one of the biggest companies in the alternative space is even planning to set up something in India. So India can be an outback. That's such. So why can't you go there? You can sell your product. So it's a big sector. Just develop a good product which meets a real need in India, even outside, doesn't matter.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abhishek.
Yeah.
Firstly, thank you. I know you get a lot of queries from potential entrepreneurs, students, researchers, and I think this was a great opportunity to have this small interaction. So once again, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you'll stay connected with some of the participants after their phase 3 is over.
Sure. Thanks, Shardul. Thanks to the entire team. And thanks, guys. It was lovely speaking to you. All the best. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you at
Thank
7
you.
p.m. for our next session.
Thank you.
So